A sudden liquidity crisis of 21 high-level endorsements evaporating in under 48 hours is the ultimate market signal that a political brand has reached junk status.
California Congressman and Democratic gubernatorial candidate Eric Swalwell is under investigation by the Manhattan DA's office this morning after several women have come forward accusing Swalwell of sexual misconduct. One of the women, a former staffer, alleges Swalwell raped her in a New York City hotel room. The congressman has denied the allegations, calling them, quote, absolutely false.
I do want to ask you about your colleague, Congressman Eric Swalwell. You heard me discussing this with Congressman Donalds. He's facing allegations of sexual assault from a former staff member, which we should say Swalwell says are completely false and politically motivated. Notable, though, House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, Senator Adam Schiff, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi are calling for Swalwell to end his run for California governor. Do you think that Swalwell should drop out of the gubernatorial race?
I absolutely do. This is, as you know, I've been very vocal on behalf of survivors of the Epstein scandal. And I think that what we are seeing now is an emergence of women across the country who have been dismissed, told to shut up, told to move on, who have been abused by men in powerful positions. This is not a partisan issue. This cuts across party line, and it is a depravity of the way that women have been treated. And I'm just inspired by the courage and the bravery of the women who came forward. This is clearly a pattern. I've already called for Congressman Swalwell to drop out of the gubernatorial race, and I think we have to hold everybody accountable.
Do you think, you just heard Congressman Donald say he would vote to expel Eric Swalwell. Will you vote to expel Eric Swalwell?
We are witnessing the Swalwell effect, a systemic contagion that has cracked the protective scaffolding of congressional tenure and exposed a multi-billion-dollar deficit in the ethics ledger of the U.S. House of Representatives. While the Manhattan DA performs a forensic extraction regarding sexual misconduct in a New York hotel room, the internal controls of both parties have entered a state of hostile overlap, where the expulsion of the improper is now a mandatory adjustment to the party balance sheets. We are documenting the moment where the protective goodwill of the Democratic leadership was written off in a single afternoon, opening the floodgates for a house-wide audit that reached a critical reconciliation today, April 13th, 2026.
I would. I've already said that I think that these things, these charges and allegations and the pattern of abuse, and in Congressman Gonzalez's case, he actually admitted to the affair with the, or to, harassment with his staffer. This is also important for staffers across the Capitol to see that their bosses don't get to do this to them. So I do think that both of them need to step down from Congress, let these investigations happen. But I think that this is very important, that we believe women and that we show people across the Capitol and across the country that we will not accept this kind of behavior.
I am Camilo Motato, and this is Camilo's House. As a certified public accountant focused on forensic verification, I approach the halls of Congress like a distressed corporate environment, where the internal audit function has been compromised by senior management. In a standard audit, if you find a pattern of abuse involving the misappropriation of human capital or the fraudulent diversion of disaster funds, you perform a systemic reconciliation to determine if the entity is still going concern compliant. Today, we are auditing the cascade of expulsion hitting the U.S. House. We are analyzing the material misstatements of Eric Swalwell, the admitted misconduct of Tony Gonzalez, the 25 violation default of Sheila McCormick, and the multi-factor ethics probe into Corey Mills. The operational breach that broke the ice for this entire audit cycle is the Swalwell scandal. Eric Swalwell, a legacy asset and gubernatorial candidate, is currently under a criminal audit by the Manhattan DA's office as of April 11, 2026. The primary source documents include a high-impact claim from a former staffer alleging a sexual assault in a New York City hotel in April 2024. From an investigative standpoint, the materiality of these claims was certified by the immediate divestment of his support base. All 21 of his congressional backers withdrew their equity. Today, Monday, April 13, 2026, Eric Swalwell officially liquidated his position by resigning from Congress to mitigate the risk of a floor expulsion vote. This Swalwell default has created a regulatory opening for the hostile takeover of other impaired assets. Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas is the second asset on the liquidation list. Gonzalez has self-certified a material breach of conduct by admitting to an affair with a staffer, Regina Santos, who tragically died by suicide. Following the lead of Swalwell, Tony Gonzalez also announced his resignation today, April 13th, after bipartisan calls for his expulsion reached a critical mass. In forensic accounting, an improper relationship with a subordinate is a direct violation of the operating agreement. The third liability being prepared for expulsion valuation is Florida's Sheila Cherfilis McCormick. Her financial statement is the most auditable of the bunch. On March 27, 2026, the House Ethics Committee issued an adverse opinion finding her guilty of 25 different ethics violations. The primary audit finding is a $5 million improper inflow, the alleged misuse of disaster relief funds to capitalize her 2022 congressional campaign. Using COVID relief capital as campaign equity is a fundamental breach of fiduciary duty. The committee is expected to meet on April 21st to decide on a mandatory liquidation, expulsion. Finally, we have the Corey Mills audit. Representative Mills is facing a multi-front ethics probe covering campaign finance violations, sexual misconduct, and dating violence. A judge has certified the risk by granting a protection order to a former Miss United States who disclosed that Mills was targeting her with sextortion assets. As a CPA, I track the legal contingencies. When a member of the board is admitted to a charge of soliciting improper gifts or misusing resources, they have defaulted on their ethical covenants. The math of expulsion is governed by the Constitution, requiring a 2/3 majority vote. From a forensic probability standpoint, expulsion is the nuclear option of asset disposal. Throughout American history, only 6 people have ever been forcibly delisted. However, the George Santos liquidation in late 2023 re-indexed the market. It proved that management is now willing to write off its own members if the reputational liability exceeds the voter equity they bring to the portfolio. My forensic verdict on the 2026 House expulsion crisis is that we are witnessing a systemic devaluation of congressional immunity. The floodgates have opened because the integrity deficit reached a point of critical insolvency. You cannot manage a superpower with managers who are diverting COVID funds or threatening staffers with sextortion. The scandal contagion started with Swalwell, but the audit will not end until the material breaches are reconciled against the law. I want to hear from you. Should the expulsion standard be standardized across both parties to sanitize the ledger, or is this cascade a hostile political maneuver? Does sextortion or COVID fraud constitute a material breach that justifies total liquidation? Let me know in the comments. Your perspective is the only audit that matters when the integrity of your representative is sitting on the negotiation table. I am Camilo Motado, and this is Camilo's House. Subscribe to stay informed on the numbers, the laws, and the truth behind the headlines. Stay safe.